Welcome everyone to today's video and the final part of the little 4-part series I've been doing where I go over each grenade for each character in DRG, with today's video being about Gunner's grenades. So it's definitely been a bit since the last video, I must say, and there's a few reasons. First off, I've been busy doing finals. That takes a lot of time. I've been just busy with a lot of other stuff, which has taken up my time, and unfortunately just couldn't get ready a good time and enough energy to properly do another recording. So that's a bit of a shame, honestly. But good news is I've been improving Blender again. I'll probably show one of my more recent Blender projects on screen real fast. So but yeah, I've been busy and I do apologize for that, but I'm back and I'm going to try and push forward with the video stuff again. Just unfortunately the past few weeks have been pretty busy for me, so video making took a back seat. So yeah, but of course, let's just get straight into the video, and we're going to go over each grenade. I'll go over my general thoughts, my opinions, and just go over each grenade Gunner has. And yeah, we'll just get right into it with the first grenade. Starting with the first grenade Gunner has, and the grenade he starts off with when you initially start the game, the sticky grenade. With a carry amount of 6, an area damage of 130, effect radius of 4, impact fear factor of 250%, and explosion fear factor of 100%. So, as the name may suggest, this grenade sticks to stuff, which is the main gimmick. When you initially throw it, when it comes into contact with a surface of terrain piece of any kind, a bug, or a player, it will stick to it, and after a few moments, after sticking to something, it will explode, doing damage within a radius, which is basically the same as the HE grenade for Drawer, but instead of the fuse mechanic Drawer has for his grenade, this grenade sticks to stuff, so, it's basically the same thing as Drawer's grenade. So, overall though, the grenade itself isn't overall, it's very flexible. Carry amount of 6, so you start off with 6 when you initially start a mission, and then after each resupply, you get 3 additional grenades. So overall, this is actually just wonderful for flexibility's sake, because it may not be you may not think it's that much starting off with 6 instead of 4 and getting 3 instead of 2 per resupply if the grenade had a base carry amount of 4, for example. But that additional grenade that additional grenade per resupply and the 2 at the start is quite big. That's a big deal, because you're able to throw these out a lot more, make these actually a lot more flexible overall, because DRG, there's a big portion of the game that's focused on resource management. So conserve your ammo, don't nuke with a grunt to oblivion with 10 grenade launcher shots or something, something absurd like that. Just conserve your ammo like a normal person. Don't do something stupid like that unless that's the meme. So you want to go for it. So it's in that case, then go away and blast away every grunt you see. But there's definitely, for some longer missions, especially deep dives, you want to conserve ammo. That's kind of a big deal. So the ability to basically have a lot more ammo in your stockpile, and in this case, that ammo is a grenade, that is a pretty big deal. So you're able to use it a lot more flexibly, and you don't have to worry so much about getting as much value out of each grenade as possible. So normally with a grenade with carry amount of 4, you would be a little bit more conservative with how you use it, since you want to make sure you get value out of it, because you only have 4 and you're not sure you're going to get a resupply soon. So it's you have to kind of see, to judge if you want to use a grenade at a certain point. You may judge that a group of 5 grunts may not be worth it, but you're not sure if you're going to see a group of even more grunts or a bigger swarm until you get your next resupply. So it's kind of have to use your ammo so you can make use of the resupply restocking you, but you don't want to waste your ammo too fast on small stuff that may be a little bit overkill. So with a carry amount of 6, you're basically not only get a bigger stockpile, more resupply grenades being added to your ammo count as you go through the mission per resupply, but also you're just able to use it a lot more flexibly, because you're just able to throw them out whenever you see a group of grunts. And if you go for minigun, for example, minigun kind of suffers a little bit against grunts. Well, it'll shred grunts, but The thing is, you may not want to waste ammo on grunts, so it's like a grenade may be more efficient since, you know, if you kill a group of like 7 grunts with a sticky grenade and you have a minigun, that's pretty good value. You saved your ammo from your minigun and you use a grenade, so overall it's relatively decent value since, you know, you have 6 of them, so you can easily spare the additional grenades for other purposes as well, so definitely pretty good. And, you know, area damage is quite nice overall. Like, it'll shred grunts, it'll deal with Magterra. Not so good against Praetorians or Oppressors, but overall a pretty decent, just standard. It's a very good profile for killing grunts and like Magterra and like around that level of toughness for creatures. Like, it's very good for that. But again, anything tougher, it doesn't really, can't really do much because even like a Praetorian will take a few of these. So it's best. This is mainly just a grunt killer or anything smarter than Praetorian, pretty much. And the effect radius of 4 isn't that bad, as again, it's very good against grunts. And the impact fear factor is a little bit interesting because if you stick this grenade to a enemy, the impact fear factor will, you know, take effect. And in that case, then, like, unless it's like an oppressor or a, you know, dread or a bulk, like if it's around a Praetorian or smaller, it's a very high likelihood you're gonna make it run away. So that could be very nice because if you see a Praetorian or a particularly dangerous creature, you can throw this grenade at them, and if it sticks, you can possibly make them back away for a bit and then explode since the grenade is still stuck to them, so it will explode. So pretty good for that. Though you don't really want to like the fear factor isn't really going to be that much because usually it'll kill most grunts, and you know, Praetorians that actually will survive the blast will probably not really bleed that often because they're actually a little bit resistant to fear. Not that much relatively, but compared to a grunt, they are definitely a little bit more harder to make, you know, flee backwards in the opposite direction of you. So like, it's very good against grunts to survive, like a grunt guard, for example. The fear factor from both the explosion and the impact and explosion fear factors, but usually like Praetorians are going to be like the main thing that'll be affected by it, and most grunts will just die. Like, regular grunts will die, but grunt guards, Praetorians, that's fair game for making them run away. So, and the good thing also is that due to the stickiness of the sticky grenade, you won't really have a rogue grenade incident happening most of the time because it sticks to stuff, you know. So it's not like the HE grenade from Drawer where it bounces off a wall weird and oh no, now the grenade's in between my teammates and you know, their shield's gone from the explosion and they're going to get some health damage from the nearby grunts that survive possibly, or something that was already attacking them, or etc. So you won't have a rogue grenade incident, so that's good. But the problem is, if you accidentally stick this to your teammate, it will not come off. Like, once a sticky grenade sticks to something, there is pretty much no way to get it off. So if you're unlucky to have your scout accidentally run in front of you when you're throwing a grenade, or at some point that occurs with none of your teammates, that sticky grenade that's on them will go off and it will do damage. Thankfully, it isn't that much damage to them. Like, it's not that, like, the sticky grenade overall isn't that big of a friendly fire issue, relatively. It's still decent damage. It'll still wreck your shield relatively, so you definitely don't want to be throwing these around like absolute madman, but it is still like not nearly as bad as other grenades. For example, the Ripper for Drawer, that is a grenade that, or a grenade adjacent tool. It's not really a grenade, it's just a buzzsaw, but that does a lot of friendly fire damage. Sticky grenade in comparison is relatively light in terms of that, but still something you need to keep in mind of, and something you still need to like not trying to avoid happening. So overall, I would say this grenade is pretty efficient. Like, it does a job. It's a general clearing out of like grunt type enemies roughly. So like, if you want a tool that cleans them out pretty well, if you have a minigun for example, you don't want to waste ammo on a pack of grunts for example, a sticky grenade could be pretty good. Of course, it just, the fear factor is also pretty decent for any grunts to survive, and Praetorians as well, so that's pretty nice for that. It's a good way to make creatures back off, which is pretty good because your minigun won't be that great when you're getting attacked from all sides because everything got around you in got a melee range, so it's very efficient for that. So overall decent tool, works well, it's a good grenade, and it does the job pretty well. But if you try and throw this thing in like bulks or anything tougher, then like even Praetorians are pretty tough to this stuff, but anything above that, it'll just ignore it completely. But besides that though, it's a flexible tool, gets the job done, and it works. Second grenade Gunner has is the Incendiary Grenade. With a carried amount of 4, an effective radius of 4.3, and duration of 6. So basically when you throw this, and once it hits when it hits the ground, because it won't activate when you hit it against a wall or a ceiling, but once it hits the ground after you throw it, it will basically explode into a white area. 4.3 for the radius isn't that bad, and it'll basically explode out into a massive inferno. Basically, this is basically a more intense version of drawers, flamethrowers, sticky flames in a bottle, basically, that you can throw at a whim, basically. And these are basically exactly the same mechanically, roughly, as a sticky flame from drawers flamethrower, since it's basically just, when enemies walk over it, they take damage, they get set alight, and they take damage from the burning. So most of the damage caused by this will be from the burning, and heating up a target until they get set on fire. So of course it's very good for temperature shock, but of course Gunner doesn't have that great of options in terms of like freezing stuff as of yet right now. So mostly this will be for like your other teammates. So Drawer with a crowd cannon and Scout with a crowd grenade, they'll be able to do temperature shock very well. So while you won't be able to do temperature shock yourself, your teammates should be able to have at least a chance to take advantage of temperature shock. And overall, I would say this is a very solid tool against swarmers. Obviously, grunts pretty good, and it's not bad against, again, temperature shock possibilities against tougher stuff like Praetorians. But the problem is that first off, it's not exactly like sticky flames, because it'll hurt your teammates as well, and it'll hurt you. So if you walk into flames, it will hurt you. So it's not like a sticky flame for a drawer where you're able to throw it on the ground and you'll be fine, your teammates will be fine, but the bugs will just die. But yeah, this hurts everything, so that's definitely an issue. Second issue is that, as a kind of like a adjacent issue, unlike the sticky grenade, this is a rogue grenade. This can cause a rogue grenade incident, and this could be really bad, because if you accidentally misjudge your aim and you throw the grenade and it manages to land right in the middle of your team, like you're defending a black box and salvage operation mission, for example, that will hurt a lot, because these flames do hurt quite a bit. It's quite a lot of friendly fire. So yeah, so it hurts quite a bit. So you definitely do not want your teammates to get hit by this. But another thing also is that, due to the fact that this can't really be used on ceilings or walls or any any vertical surface or ceiling, this can't be used that well against Mactera or any flying creatures at all. Like if the bugs basically if a Mactera spawn face plants into the ground, yeah, we'll take damage. But besides that, unlike the sticky grenade, which can be used against Mactera and can be at least half decent against Mactera spawn at the very least, because it does decent damage. Incendiary Grenade is basically, you have to get everyone into, you have to get an entire swarm of bugs into a relatively small area that only affects stuff on the ground. Anything above the ground will basically avoid the flames, and that could be a serious issue. So definitely some issues there. Though of course, if you funnel all their bugs into a certain tunnel or a certain small area of the cavern you're in currently, that can be pretty good. So if you funnel an entire swarm of Glyphic Grunts into the Incendiary Grenade, this will be a great value overall, because you'll just set, Grunt Guards and Grunt Slashers will last a little bit, but basic Grunts, Swarmers will just die pretty fast. And if your team has any freezing capabilities, again, Drawer or Scout in, those two in particular, you'll be able to get a lot of temperature shock stuff in, so that's quite nice. So that's very good. But overall, I think this is one of the more weaker versions, like weaker grenade choices overall, because it's basically you're forcing yourself in a very like certain play style where it's like you can't use the grenade flexibly at all, like relatively, because it only goes off on fours. You can't use it to deal flying stuff. You can't deal with anything on walls basically, unless there's a slanted surface that allows the sticky flames. Basically, that's what they are from the grenade to go off and properly work. So it's kind of like it's very niche in how you can use it, like compared to other grenades. Like sticky grenade, you're able to throw it and it'll stick to any surface and it'll explode. So it's very basic, very simple, but is very flexible. There's pretty much not a situation where you can't use it, unless you want to avoid hitting your teammates or you don't think it's worth it. Incendiary Grenade has a little bit of restrictions, and of course, again, you can't deal with flying stuff that well, so it's not good. And for that, and it's also not great that you only have a carried amount of 4. So start with 4, 2 per resupply. That really limits it because that means you can't just throw it. You just can't throw it around like a stick grenade in terms of like being fine with not a perfect level of performance per grenade, because with 4 grenades you have to actually get some use out of them, so that's kind of an issue. So especially since it's like you have to actually have a proper swarm come towards you, because if a swarm does come towards you and you get a incendiary grenade down, it's pretty good, but often just like with a 4 carried amount max, it's kind of hard to judge sometimes whether or not you should use it or not, because they're very powerful, but if you use it improperly, you could waste a grenade, and when a proper swarm comes, then you may not have a grenade to properly use it on. So it's definitely quite good though. Again, the duration of 6, also duration 6 is great. Just pretty much a very solid like area denial overall tool basically for like with the grunts, obviously Praetorians and bulks and dreads and anything tougher than that will just not care at all. So it's a very good tool. Like, it's very good at what it does. It's very good at killing grunts. It's very good at killing swarmers. Problem is though that anything besides that narrow toughness bracket for enemies, like that won't do much at all. Like Praetorians won't care, bulks won't care, dreads won't care, anything flying won't care about this at all, pretty much unless they face plant into the ground, which depending on how terrain is generated during the mission. Maybe, if you get a very small tunnel that's where the ceiling is very close to the ground, that's a possibility, but besides that, just flying enemies don't care at all about this, so yeah. But overall, I would say it's a very good grunt and swarmer killing tool, basically. So if you're going heavy into like anti-large guy, which Gunner can do with minigun, for example, or his missile launcher in particular, this can be very good against like anti-grunt or anti-swarmer, basically, where your main and possibly secondary guns are very anti-large, and your grenade is just in case you have to deal with like a massive swarm that you don't want to waste ammo on for your primary and secondary. So that's a possibility, but overall I would say like any other grenade gunner has can be used a little more flexibly than this one, because just due to how it works, it's very powerful when it works, but the problem is it has a lot of restrictions and niche like situational uses and like restrictions and how it works. It's a good grenade, but there's just a little bit of like small details that kind of drag it down compared to the other grenades, but when it works well. So overall I think it's a valid tool against like, again, swarms, but besides that, it's like you may want to look for other grenades possibly, or possibly mod your primary secondary to fulfill the anti-swarm role, and possibly go another grenade for if you want to do some other purpose with it. But overall I would say this is a fine grenade, but you could go for better options overall if you really wanted to. Next grenade we have for Gunner is a cluster grenade with a carry amount of 4, and I don't trust myself saying the proper name of the next few details because it's currently like 5 in the morning, so my ability to say words longer than 3 letters have dropped dramatically. So it has a total of 9 mini bombs, with each mini bomb having a area damage of 40, a effective radius of 3.8, a stun chance of 50, and a stun duration of 1.5. So, Cluster Grenade is very similar to the Incendiary Grenade, with the you can't reuse it on walls, or well, you can't reuse it on ceilings, but on walls you can actually, because a little bit at least, because when you throw the grenade and once it hits a surface, it will release all the mini bombs within it, and they will arc around in a roughly similar like arcing wobbing kind of like arc for like how the projectile goes, and roughly within the same like they'll all travel roughly the same distance from each other from the initial source of impact for the grenade. And once they hit the ground, they will, or a terrain piece of any kind, they'll explode, and you know, like 9 miniature bombs basically going off within a small area can be pretty good. Like, this will definitely hurt grunts quite a bit if they get hit by like 2 or more of the miniature bombs at once, and even if you get hit by one, that will definitely hurt. That'll break some armor off. That will definitely possibly stun them, which is pretty good, especially for like grunt guards or slashers, which if you stun them, then that makes it a lot easier to take them down. So, very overall, is a very good grunt killer, but not really good at killing swarmers or like very fast, small moving creatures like Larva and all that, kind of like that class of creature relatively, like the Incendiary Grenade can. But definitely kind of makes up for it, because it actually, instead of the Incendiary Grenade where it's very good against grunts and swarmers, the Cluster Grenade is pretty good against, you know, grunts. But it goes a little bit, it goes, instead of going like down the toughness bracket basically and killing grunts and swarmers, it goes after grunts and like up to Praetorians a bit. So like, it can't do pretty decent damage against Praetorians. It does pretty decent damage against like anything in between grunts and Praetorians. You can do decently well. Like menaces can take a bit of damage, but you have to get grenade close to them, so that's kind of its own issue. But that can do pretty decent damage against like septic spreaders, stingtails a little bit. Like, the Cluster Grenade can do some pretty decent work against like some tougher stuff overall. Especially if you manage to get all the miniature bombs to explode very close together. Like, you have a very like a corner of the cavern that's very compact, or is a very small tunnel. If you throw a grenade there and all the miniature bombs just explode in that one small area, that is a pretty decent amount of damage. That does way more damage than a sticky grenade, like a single sticky grenade, if all the bomblets hit. So actually, I managed to actually say it right. Amazing. I'm actually not totally tired yet, so that's great. But yeah, it can actually do some pretty decent damage against like even Praetorians. Like, it'll break a few bits of armor off at least. So you know, we'll definitely like soften up their health bar a little bit. So that's very good. Of course, the unlike the sticky grenade, this is basically it trades a lot more power for also getting a lot more random chaos basically, because if you know your teammates get hit by this, it'll hurt a lot. These miniature bombs will definitely shred shield pretty nastily and pretty quickly, because they'll just like, especially if like 2 or 3 get hit, you know, 2 or 3 make contact with your teammate, their shield is pretty much going to be mostly devastated, if not outright gone. And there's a good chance there's going to be some health damage there, which is pretty bad. And due to the fact that the bomblets kind of, I said it correctly again, but if they spread out in a way, or you manage to, a certain way, or you manage to throw the grenade and you had a rogue grenade incident where you accidentally misjudged where you threw it, and grenade comes back onto your teammates, that can do a lot of damage. This can actually reliably, possibly, like relatively, do hefty damage to your teammates, and that can be very dangerous, especially on Has 4 and Has 5. So it can be very damaging and just very dangerous overall. The good news is that due to like how it kind of works, assuming like you're in like a very like terrain heavy area, if you throw within like a certain corner of the map and there's no like teammates in that area, and there's bugs in that area, it's very likely the bugs will die, because the bomblets will just saturate an area. It's basically carpet bombing. Basically, it'll just saturate an area. You know, like 40 damage per bomblet will definitely shred grunts. It will shred decent amount of stuff. It'll do have pretty good damage against like Mactera if they get in range of the bomblets, but it'll even do half damage, like half decent damage against like Praetorians and Stingtails and stuff like that. Of that relative, at least softened them up a bit, as I said before. But again, like bulks, dreads don't really care about this at all, like most grenades. And yeah, you have to be really careful about where you throw this, because again, one bad grenade and that could really shred your teammates. But again, it's like this kind of has the same issues as Incendiary Grenade. It's very hard to use because when the grenade, you throw a grenade and it hits a surface, it'll the bomblets will come off it and go in with like little arcs and go around it and then explode when they hit their own surface when they finish their arc. So you can't really just, it isn't a grenade where you throw it and then the area within where you, like, the area that when it hits the surface, like, it is a sticky grenade. Like, you throw the sticky grenade, it sticks to an area, and then it explodes. Like, it has a level of certainty with the fact that this area in particular is going to die, basically. Quest grenade is you throw a grenade, hits the surface, then all of a sudden it basically mortars, like, a bunch of miniature bombs everywhere, and it can be kind of random where to go sometimes, and a little bit hard to judge. So it's like, sometimes you may kill entire grunt swarm, sometimes you only kill half of it, and the other grunts manage to survive with like half health. So it's like a little bit random with that as well. So, but again, you can kind of make up for the fact that you throw it. You can't make up for that, or by throwing it into a corner when all the miniature bombs explode at once in one small area. That will shred a lot of stuff. But if you actually have a wide open area, it can be a little bit rough. And again, it's like due to how it works, it's like trying to get bomblets going onto the ceiling and some walls, depending on how like the terrain is, can be a little bit difficult. So I would say overall that this is basically just the Incendiary Grenade, but instead of going for swarmers and grunts, this goes for grunts and Praetorians, kind of, but more about like the middle area between Praetorians and grunts, so like Stingtails, septic spreaders, that kind of stuff. So it goes pretty well against that kind of stuff. Like medium, like white, like grunt, like white-ish, like toughness in terms of like overall toughness, like grunt targets, like very like white targets in terms of like armor and health and all that stuff, and more medium targets like Praetorian, Stingtails, and that kind of area. Like it's very good against that. Well, Incendiary is very good against like swarmers, grunts, and that's it. So I would say overall this is kind of a lot better overall than the Incendiary Grenade, just because the potential for possibly doing some pretty hefty damage against like single targets could be pretty good. Like if all the bomblets connect, that's a lot of damage. That can actually shred some decent amounts of armor off a Praetorian. But it has its own issues. It can be a little bit random. The bomblets can be a whole mess and a half. But besides that, though, I think it's a decent tool. Like, it'll work. Like, it's a bomb that throws more bombs out, and very often it'll just shred grunts pretty easily. But you kind of have to get used to, like, a little bit. You have to get used to its randomness. You have to get used to its trajectory and the trajectory of the bomblets that shoots out when it hits the surface. So it's definitely a interesting tool, but I think once you get used to it, it can be pretty decent. But it can definitely get some time. You have to get used to it, and you have to be really careful not to accidentally hit your teammates, because it's very likely that if your teammates get hit, it's very likely they'll take damage, and if it's on Has 5 and you're already damaged, it's very likely they'll go down pretty much instantly if multiple bomblets connect with them. Final grenade that Gunner has is a tactical Leadburster with a carry amount of 4, an arming speed of 0.4, a volleys of 48, volley size of 12, and bullets contained 576. So basically, upon being thrown, this will, after impacting a piece of terrain, it will take a second to arm, and then I'll start firing bullets in a 360 radius around it. And these bullets actually, from what I can tell, always what the wiki says from my research, these bullets actually get more powerful the farther they travel. So if they're like a bug is right next to a Tactical Leadburster, when it goes off, it'll get a lot of bullets in the face, but each of those bullets does very little damage, relatively. But if a Mactera is like quite a bit away from the Leadburster but still in range, every bullet it takes from it will do a lot more damage per bullet, but it'll take a lot less. So I guess that's roughly how they balance it, so that it will be pretty much the same amount of damage roughly, or at least it'll do comparable damage no matter how far target is away from it. So I guess that's their way of balancing it roughly, but I'm not really sure. I haven't done that much testing about like distance-based damage, all that stuff, but that's from my saw, or at least from my research. But overall, I would say this is a very good grenade against Mactera, and a very good against like swarms in general, because this will do a 360. Unlike every other grenade, this does a 360 burst of like everything around it basically. The sticky grenade is pretty good as well for Mactera, but this is like the peak of like anti-Mactera grenades roughly, pretty much, for Gunner. Because he throws against the wall, and assuming that it's in a hallway or like a corridor that's relatively not too tight, but like a decent, it's decent amount for like a hallway, like an average roughly sized like hallway between two major caverns, and when Mactera swarms coming through, this will shred the Mactera because it'll shoot a lot of bullets out. Those bullets will do a lot of damage, and Mactera don't have much health, so they get shredded. And this will go the same for grunts, but grunts get shredded from this stuff, and it's like very effective for that. And it's just very good at clearing out like grunts, Mactera, like not like big targets like Praetorians, because Praetorians have armor and will take damage from it most definitely. The armor and just general toughness of Praetorian and anything tougher, like bulks or dreads or oppressors, means that they'll probably just weather the grenade pretty well. And anything smaller than a swarm, like a swarmer larvae, like if they get hit by a bullet, they'll die. But this thing is, they could possibly weave through the bullets, possibly if they're far enough away. So this isn't a guarantee to like wipe out an entire swarmer group like the Incendiary Grenade, since Incendiary Grenade coats the entire area with fire. Tactical Leadburster peppers an area with a lot of bullets, and there's a possibility that some swarmers may be able to simply just manage to weave through the swarm of bullets just by walking, pretty much. So yeah, you should keep that in mind at the very least. So I would say overall, like, this is a very good grenade overall against like grunts, Mactera of various sizes. Like, not like, besides like maybe Brundles, because the Brundles have decent amount of armor, but like Goo Bombers, Grabbers, Trijaws, regular Mactera spawn, like they'll at the very least take a massive hit from this. And grunts of various types will go down pretty well to this as well, because even like grunt guards, their armor isn't like tough enough, it isn't like covering them up enough to properly shield them from the bullets, unlike a Praetorian or a oppressor. So Tactical Leadburster is very good against grunts and Mactera for that reason. And of course, like, again, it's like tougher stuff with a lot of armor, a lot of health can like weather the storm pretty well, and anything smaller has a chance to dodge it. So I would say overall this is a very solid, like, I guess not really mid-range, but it's very good for clearing out like the big middle ground of the main part of a swarm. Like, it'll clean out the Mactera if it's Mactera plague, or it'll clean out the grunts of a swarm, which are usually the two major, like, I guess the best way to put it, like the major base of a swarm, like the backbone of it mostly, because you see a lot of Mactera and a lot of grunts, and usually have Praetorians and other stuff supplementing it, but usually most of the time you see a lot of Mactera and grunts as the main backbone of it, really. So this cleans out both of them pretty well, and this does it very effectively, because despite being a cured amount of 4, assuming you have a half decent swarm on your hands, you throw it against a wall, because it's basically a sticky grenade. It will stick to a wall or any other like terrain piece it lands in. So you can throw it on a ceiling or a wall if you want to, or even on the floor if you do decide to, and you'll still go off. So it's pretty flexible in terms of that. So it's not like a cluster grenade or a incendiary grenade where try and get it on a wall or try and get on even a ceiling can be a little bit tricky. This thing goes on, like, tactical web bursters go on every angle you could possibly go for in terrain, so very flexible for that. But despite the wonderful DPS potential of this thing, there are some issues. First off, this thing does a lot of damage to your teammates. Trend from Incendiary to Cluster to this. So this can do a lot of damage to your teammates, especially if they get hit by a lot of bullets. So this is one of the few grenades that you actually really need to be careful with, because unlike the Cluster Grenade, it's very likely it'll pepper everything within radius. It's very likely, assuming it's like grunt or dwarf size roughly. So, like swarmers have a chance to get through because they're simply just small enough, and there may be enough of them where at least some of them will get through. You being roughly around the size of a grunt is like the perfect target for the Leadburster, which could be a serious issue. So you have to actually be very careful with this around your teammates, because this can actually shred shields. Like if you accidentally throw this out and your drawer gets caught off guard by it, it's very likely the shield will go down pretty quickly if he takes a few bullets. Since this thing does a lot of damage, it fires very fast. It fires a lot of bullets, so it'll just basically just shred, basically just shield pretty quickly. And if you're very unlucky, you'll go after health as well. Always do some health damage at the very least. And due to the fact that it can't really kill Praetorians and has, is a little bit inconsistent with that stuff, if there's a Praetorian nearby, the Praetorian will go after your teammate, which without their shield will take health damage, which will make the problem even worse, especially on HAS 4 or 5. So this is something you really need to be careful with, because again, it does a lot of damage. You have to be careful with it. But besides that, though, I would say overall for a grenade that is trying to kill the backbone of like a good portion of swarms you'll deal with in the game, it does that job pretty well without much issue besides the friendly fire issue, since it'll kill grunts pretty easily, it'll kill Bacteria pretty easily, and sure, swarmers are a little bit weird sometimes, and Praetorians have enough health to take it, but they'll still at least take some damage. But besides that, though, it's just like, it does the job pretty well. Like, it'll kill the grunts, it'll kill swarmers, and overall I would say it's a very effective tool for that, so it's very effective for that, and I would say it's honestly kind of just better than Cluster Grenade for that, because Cluster Grenade is a lot more inconsistent with the bomblets, basically, because you're basically hoping the bomblets will fall the right way in order to explode and then kill the grunts, which can be, again, inconsistent, because, the stun chance could be a little bit better than the raw damage of the Leadburster, but usually stunning a Praetorian or grunts that survive isn't nearly as good as simply killing them outright, or at least, killing the grunts and leaving the Praetorian to be picked off. So, and often the bomblets tend to fall in such a way where, it doesn't really, sometimes it doesn't kill much at all. And the Incendiary Grenade is very poor against flying enemies overall, very poor against Praetorians, very poor against a lot of stuff. It's very good against grunts and swarmers, but that's pretty much all it's good against, like very white enemies overall, like in terms of toughness and armor, like grunts and swarmers, because it doesn't really go after armor, it just goes for like burning stuff alive, and that really ignores the armor issue. So yeah. And sticky grenade is kind of like a different thing overall. Like these are more like general, like wide area denial tools. This is more of like a single target DPS, or like a small group queering, basically. So you basically use a sticky grenade to queer out small groups, while the rest of these three are various types of AoE damage, area denial, basically, of some kind. This is more area denial, but these two can just shred an area pretty well, so I would say they're kind of within the same league, roughly. Though, of course, this lasts for a little bit longer, so it's more like effective area denial, but yeah. Like, these three are like very focused on AoE. This less so, but it's more focused and refined, so yeah. Like, sticky grenade won't do much friendly fire, even if they get caught on someone, while the incendiary grenade, cluster grenade, and Leadburster can do a lot of damage if you accidentally catch one of your teammates off guard by accident with one. So yeah, definitely assuming you get past the friendly fire issue and getting used to using it, I would say this is a very good grenade overall. It's very effective. clears out a lot of tough enemies, like, Queen at White, Mytera are very dangerous. Clearing them out's good. Various grunts can be very dangerous when they swarm around you. It's very good for clearing out that stuff. And the thing is, like, once you clear out the grunts of Mytera and like the chaff of a wave or a swarm, usually like Praetorians or like the special stuff like the Stingtails, Septic Spreaders, usually those don't really do that well by themselves. They usually rely on the grunts to take fire and distract. So if you clear out the grunts of Mytera, then your teammates can pick off everything else pretty easily, and this goes for the other grenades as well. But I think the Leadburster does the best because it gets rid of Mytera as well, and it does it relatively effectively. So overall, I would say this grenade is very good for clearing out like the mid-range like chaff of a swarm. It'll clear out grunts, it'll clear out Mytera pretty well, and do a half decent job against swarmers. Praetorians not so much, or anything tougher definitely not, but I would say overall for a tool that's meant to clear out that kind of stuff, it does it very well. And besides the issues of friendly fire, it has no real major issues overall. And I would say it's overall great grenade, does job well, and if you want to use it, I would say it's definitely not a bad choice. That was all 4 grenades that Gunner could have in DRG. So overall, I think all these grenades have their uses. Like Leadburster overall is a good like clear of grunts and Mytera. Cluster Grenade is more focused on AoE that's also very decent against like Praetorians and like tougher stuff that Leadburster will suffer against, as well as Incendiary Grenade will suffer against, because Incendiary Grenade focuses more on grunts and swarmers, while the City Grenade is more of a focused single target or small group clearing tool that isn't as like it isn't like pure area denial like Incendiary Grenade, or just general AoE like Incendiary Grenade or Cluster Grenade or Tactical Leadburster. So overall, I think all these grenades have their own purposes and their own uses, and of course, play how you want. I'm just a guy on the internet talking about stuff at like 6 a.m. So it's like, play how you want, enjoy the game how you want. I'm just talking about stuff on the internet, so yeah. But yeah, either way, hope you all enjoyed the video today. Appreciate you stopping by. I'll definitely be trying to get it more into the video making stuff overall when I can, but to make a quick recap of my preferred grenades, like ones I don't like to the least, the grenades I like the least to the ones I like the most. We have the Incendiary Grenade, the honestly I kind of grown like Sticky Grenade a bit, but I still think Sticky Grenade is less than a Cluster Grenade, and then Tactical Leadburster on top. So those are my general rankings, like, or my general opinion on each in terms of like ranking each other over each, like ranking each grenade compared to each other. So yeah. Again, overall, I'll try and get more into video stuff. And yeah, again, appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe if you do decide. If you manage to somehow like this video, despite me being probably sounding terrible right now because it's 6 a.m. It's 6 in the morning. So yeah, but yeah. Appreciate stopping by, everyone. Hope you all again enjoyed the video, and hopefully see you next time whenever I do a stream or I do another video. So again, appreciate stopping by, everyone. Good night. Ciao.